anything. We never basically borrow money. I mean, we get float through our insurance business and do things, but I never borrowed money. I never borrowed money when I had $10,000 basically, because what difference did it make? I was having fun as I went along, and it didn't make any difference whether I had $10,000 or $1 million or $10 million, except if I had a medical emergency or something had come along like that. But I was going to do the same things when I had a lot of money as when I had very little money. If you think about the difference between me and you in terms of how we live, we wear the same clothes basically. SunTrust gives me mine, but you. So we wear the same clothes. We eat. We all have a chance to drink the juice of the gods here. But we all go to McDonald's, or better yet, Dairy Queen, and we live in a house that's warm in winter and cool in summer, and we watch Nebraska, Texas A&M on a big screen. You see it the same way I see it. We do everything. Our lives aren't that different. You'll get decent medical care if something happens to you, and I'll get decent medical care. The only thing we do is we travel differently. I ride around this little plane, and I love it. And that takes money. But if you leave that aside, we travel differently. But other than travel, I think about it. Think, what can I do that you can't do? Now, I get to work in a job that I love, but I've always worked in a job I love. I loved it when I loved it just as much when it was a big deal if I made $1,000. And I urge you to work in jobs you love. I mean, I think you're out of your mind if you keep taking jobs that you don't like because you think it'll look good on your resume. I was with a fellow at Harvard the other day who was taking me over to talk, and he was 28, and he was telling me what he'd done in life, which was terrific. And then I said, "What are you going to do next?" And he said, after I get out my MBA, he says, "I think maybe I ought to go to work for a management consulting firm because it'll look good on my resume." And I said, "Wait a second, you've been 28, you've been doing all these things. I mean, you've got a resume that's 10 times as good as anybody I've ever seen it already." I said, "If you take another job you don't like, I said, isn't that a little like saving up sex for your old age? There comes a time when you ought to just start doing what, So, I think I got the point across to him. But you ought to take a job. When you get out here, take a job you love. Don't take a job that you think is going to look good on your resume. Take a job you love. You may change it later on, but you'll jump out of bed in the morning. I mean, when I got out of Columbia, the first thing I tried to go to work for Graham immediately. I offered to go to work for him for nothing. He said I was overpriced, but I kept pestering him. I went out to Omaha and I sold securities for 3 years, and I kept writing him and giving him ideas and doing all these things. Finally, I went to work for him for a couple of years, and it was a great experience. But I always really worked in a job. I worked in a job that I loved doing, and you should really take a job that if you were independently wealthy you would take. That's the job to take, because that's the one that you're going to have great fun in. You'll learn something. You'll be excited about it, and you can't miss. You may go do something else later on, but you'll get way more out of it. And I don't care what the starting salary is or anything of the sort. I don't know how I got off on that, but there I am. So I do think that if you think you're going to be a lot happier if you've got 2x instead of x, you're probably making a mistake. I mean, you ought to find something you like that works with that, and you'll get in trouble if you think that making 10x or 20x is the answer to everything in life, because then you will do things like borrow money when you shouldn't, or maybe cut corners on things that your employer wants you to cut corners on. Or it just doesn't make any sense. You won't like it when you look back on it.